Let's look at all the methods that you can use to develop gluten in your sourdough bread. Gluten is so important in sourdough bread, and there are many ways to achieve proper gluten development. This video is intended to demonstrate each method, but doesn't dive into when or how to use these methods in your recipes. For more on gluten and timestamps for each method in this video, check the description below. Folding techniques are used in doughs that can stretch, meaning the hydration is at least 70% and the flour type doesn't tighten the dough too much. This is the classic stretch and fold, one of the most commonly used folds in sourdough baking. This method pulls the dough up and over itself on all sides. Folds are a gentle and simple method of developing gluten by hand. Gluten development is twofold. The dough must develop extensibility, which is its ability to stretch to a window pane, as well as elasticity, which is its ability to hold itself together. Folds develop the elasticity, while the resting periods between folds develop extensibility. The coil fold is an even gentler stretch and fold, commonly used further into bulk fermentation, or for highly hydrated or large batches of dough. With this method, the dough is pulled up from the center until one side releases, then is coiled over itself. This is not the first fold performed on this dough. By this point, the dough is getting stronger and is not stretching as much. This dough could probably take 1 or 2 more sets of folds. When your dough resists being stretched, you know it's time to give it a rest. It is important when folding to stretch the dough evenly all around, no matter the technique. This way, the gluten is evenly strengthened on all parts of the dough. This bench light fold is, in essence, a very gentle slap and fold. With this method, the dough is turned out onto a clean counter which has been lightly sprayed with water. The thumbs are used to secure the top of the dough, which is then flipped over, stretched, and folded over itself. This method, as well as the next, is less common, at least in my experience, but just as effective as the classic stretch and fold. You can leave the dough on the counter covered by your proofing bowl, which is flipped upside down over the dough between sets. As with any folding method, a set consists of 4 to 8 folds, at least one being in each cardinal direction. The dough will start off stretchy, but will tighten with each fold. Once the dough will no longer stretch, it needs a rest before the next set. Last, a letter fold works in thirds. Fold the dough out and over to the center on each side, then rotate the dough 90 degrees and work from the other 2 sides. Continue this pattern until the dough will no longer stretch, then give it a rest. Lamination is a versatile term that can mean several different things in bread making. When it comes to strengthening bread dough, lamination is when the dough is stretched thin to a see-through consistency if you can get it. It is used as a tool at the beginning of bulk fermentation to strengthen the dough and incorporate mix-ins that hold up well and will not affect bulk fermentation. Here, I work from the middle outward to stretch the dough on all sides as far as it will go. To be able to do this, the dough must have already developed a window pane, or else the dough will simply tear. Lamination is said to have the effect of 2 sets of folds, meaning it adds a lot of strength to the dough. The use of it here at the beginning of bulk fermentation means I can get maximum benefit and stretch without affecting the air bubbles from fermentation later on. The only difference between this lamination and the other is that here I am more gentle with the dough. I do not stretch the dough quite as far, and I'm careful to keep it in a nice rectangular shape so that it rolls up easily and evenly. This lamination is great as a last effort strengthening measure or to incorporate mix-ins that would not hold up well during bulk fermentation, such as cinnamon sugar. Using lamination during shaping will even out the crumb fairly well, but it is still possible to achieve an open and even crumb using this method. After laminating, I like to let the dough rest for 15 to 20 minutes before finishing my shape. Because lamination works the gluten so well, the dough may be too tight to easily form into a bowl or petard. The rest period gives the gluten a chance to relax and makes working the dough much easier. Kneading by hand is a great way to develop gluten up front. This method is usually paired with a few folds since it can be quite a bit of work to develop the dough fully. The slap and fold is a messy but fun way to work the dough. The focus here should not necessarily be on the slap, but rather on the stretch that follows it, as well as the fold that finishes the technique. Kneading develops the two components of gluten, extensibility and elasticity, in a different way than folds do. When the dough is consistently manipulated and stretched, the gluten comes together, first to form extensibility, which is visibly seen by a window pane, and shortly thereafter elasticity, which is the strength of the dough. A dough that is not fully developed through kneading will need a few folds to add necessary strength to the dough. Rubaud mixing works the dough from underneath, similar to a coil fold. This technique is an excellent starting point to begin developing the gluten after the ingredients are first mixed. It is gentle, yet effective in the way that it stretches and aerates the dough from the underside. Bowl folds are my default go-to kneading method by hand. Like Rubaud mixing, it is less messy since everything stays in the bowl. This method could be compared to an endless stretch and fold as it works the dough up and over itself. When kneading by hand, the dough goes through 3 stages. First, the dough is rough and messy. It will quickly come together and tighten, but will still tear. Next, the dough miraculously loosens up and becomes more extensible, yet is still a bit rough and is not completely formed a window pane. Last, the dough will tighten once more, become smooth all over, and will tear no longer. It has developed a full window pane and has become strong enough that it will stretch no more. This is a dough that has been fully developed. Bench kneading has always been my go-to method for low hydration doughs, but it can be used for doughs of moderate hydrations as well. You can see what it looks like for both types of doughs in this video. This method uses the heel of the palm to push and stretch the dough into the countertop. No-knead sourdough is a common practice these days, as many do not want to take the time to develop the dough fully. But in reality, the bulk of kneading has just been replaced with folds. While both methods develop the gluten appropriately, they just do it differently. When you know what to look for in your dough, the choice of how to obtain proper gluten development is up to you. Kneading by mixer is an effective, hands-off way to develop gluten in sourdough bread, though it can be a hot topic, depending on the type of bread dough and the mixer. This is a KitchenAid mixer, kneading a 70% hydration unenriched bread dough at speed 6. This speed can be risky, as it can burn the motor if worked too much. The design of this mixer makes it difficult to work the wet dough appropriately without the higher speed. Despite the difficulty and riskiness, it is possible. When the dough is nearly ready, it will completely form a ball around the dough hook. I also wanted to show a low hydration dough in a KitchenAid stand mixer. This is the type of dough that is best suited for the mixer. Because the dough contains more flour, it comes together easier and does not require higher mixing speeds to develop the dough properly. While a KitchenAid mixer is a convenient and common home mixer in many homes, it honestly is not the best option for kneading versatile types of dough. It is best suited for the low hydration breads that can be worked at a low speed. Ankarsrum is another type of mixer that is designed to work in a completely different way. On this mixer, the bowl turns rather than the hook. There are 2 bread hook options, the dough hook and the dough roller. This dough hook is not suitable for low hydration doughs, but works moderate to high hydration doughs efficiently. You can see here I'm having to hold the scraper down to help it do its job. This does happen sometimes depending on the type of dough I have in the mixer and is a minor annoyance. Overall, you can see how this hook beautifully works the dough in that stretch and pull manner to build dough strength. The dough roller is suitable for any type of dough. For moderate hydration doughs, the roller, bowl, and scraper work together to develop the dough. When the dough becomes strong enough to form a ball, you'll know it's almost ready. When it comes to low hydration doughs, the roller works in a similar manner to the bench kneading method by hand. The roller and the side of the bowl work together to develop the dough, while the scraper and the bowl keep the dough intact and moving. The only problem I've experienced with low hydration doughs with this mixer is that sometimes they have a difficult time coming together and need a little help in the first 3 to 5 minutes. If you're interested in learning more about gluten, why it is so important in sourdough baking, and how various factors affect gluten development, check the description below for a link to my full blog post on this topic. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was a helpful visual for you. Please let me know in the comments what you would like to see next, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Happy baking!